Your final is tomorrow. Obviously, it will be on chapters 4, 5, 11, 13, and 14. If you click on the final, it's been open technically since last Friday, so you can do it anytime you want. And I encourage you to. You don't have to wait till tomorrow if you don't want to, but you would have been able to see if you clicked on it what the chapters were. Yes, go ahead, Davian.
I took the final earlier, and there was one question. I have to look back into it, but it had two of the same answers, and I clicked one of the answers, like they literally was the same answer, and it said it was wrong.
Oh, yeah, don't worry about it. I grade the final, so the computerized grade that it gives you is just a preliminary. I'll start
Okay.
grading starting from tonight. So I catch those little blemishes, and thank you for telling me. We'll have to adjust it so it's not showing the same question twice.
Okay.
But thank you for that.
Oh, no problem.
Okay. Um, Quick reminder also, all of your assignments outside of Thursday's assignment are due tonight at midnight. Please, my friends, tonight at midnight. Please do not ask me come tomorrow. Oh, can you accept this, accept that? Like I have a deadline too. Okay. All your grades have to be in tomorrow night. So I can't play with it, right? And that means I'm gonna be up till midnight making sure you have all your grades. So I can't be accepting 2 weeks worth of assignments when I have 3 classes. So please, my friends, thank you. Um, Everything must be in tonight. Let me go ahead. Go ahead, Davian. Not sure if you still had a question. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I don't know. I've been taken down.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna go ahead and mute everyone. I see a couple of people are off mute. I don't want you to mess up say anything. Also, so that's good. So tonight we're gonna just talk a little bit about things that we've discussed in the past, but hopefully I'll pull it all together. And then we're gonna talk about a subject that I had not brought up, but hopefully you guys will find some enjoyment out of it. So this course has been talking about professionalism. If you haven't gotten anything out of what we've spoken about in the past 4 weeks, it's been about professionalism. And what is professionalism? How do we define it? Well, one could define professionalism as the, a certain skill set, right? Your technical skills, and hopefully by now you know that it takes more than technical skills to be a professional. It also takes soft skills. What is that? Good judgment, good character, your behavior. Specifically, what are your workplace skills? What are your self management skills? And self management is something that a lot of us may not think about, even though we subconsciously understand it, because everyone is concerned with making sure they have a good work environment. If you hear people talk about toxic work environments or, a culture of, whatever, or any type of culture, right? Because every company has a culture there. And it is your hope, most of us hope that we walk into an organization with a really positive culture. A lot of that has to do with how people self-manage themselves, specifically their emotional regulation. You may have heard that term like, oh, this person doesn't have good emotional regulation. And sometimes people or emotional intelligence is another term people tend to use. Some people confuse that with your ability to, identify the emotions of others. But what it actually is your ability to regulate your own emotions. So emotional intelligence has to do with knowing what your triggers are, knowing what gives you anxiety, knowing what makes you a little tense, knowing what makes you happy, knowing what situations trigger your emotions and managing them accordingly. Are you going to have a lot of different, situations at your job where it could trigger your emotions? Yeah, I think anybody's ever had a job. Even my first job at McDonald's triggered my emotions. I remember my my job at McDonald's. Um, so, no matter where you go, there's going to be a culture that triggers your emotions, and your ability to regulate those emotions are going to be critically important. So, in chapter 14, and I don't remember a lot of questions from the final from this chapter, maybe a few, maybe like 3 or 4. But the final is, random. So hopefully somebody might get 5 and somebody else might get 2. But I don't remember there being a ton of questions on this, but at any rate, so when we talk about self management, part of it is, yes, the obvious stuff like being on time and being dependable. We know that. We've talked about that. Also having integrity and honesty. You may see some of that in your job descriptions. Hopefully, if you've been looking at those job descriptions, you see those soft skills that that company is looking for. 9 times out of 10, if they've mentioned those soft skills, it's because somebody has broken them. Somebody has come along with some crazy, crazy, non-regulation. They was like, okay, we think it's important to put this in the job description because we want the person to make sure that they bring those skills with them. And you can see how important it is, because if it wasn't, they wouldn't have it in a job description. Is that not the case? So when it comes to time management, we know that, being on time, prioritizing your tasks. No one has to tell you if you have two deadlines and one's coming up tomorrow and one's in 2 weeks. Which assignment do you need to do first? Which task do you need to do first? But when it comes to emotional regulation, learning how to control your one's emotions, employees lacking this skill often lose jobs. Sometimes we call them hotheads. We call them, they have, bad tempers or whatever we want to call it. But this is a big issue, as we probably all have, stories about in work environments, is people's inability to control their emotions through these situations. It's already working is already stressful. Why? Because you have somebody else telling you what to do, what time to come, what time to leave, where to go, when to do this, when to do that. That in and of itself is stressful. That's why a lot of people own their own business. I've never heard anyone say, you know what, I just love working for somebody else. If all I don't care if I had $1 million. I wake up just wanting to go just, you know, uh sell my time to somebody so I can do a service for them, because essentially that's what you're doing. You're providing a service to an institution and they're paying you for your service, right? I don't know too many people that they would choose that option if they had another option. So even in that environment, then on top of that, they throw you with a bunch of people you have no idea who they are, where they came from, all different kinds of walks of life, and they told you you're a team. Yeah, good luck with that, right? I mean, but it is similar to real life, right? You don't get to choose your classmates. You don't get to choose your workmates. You don't get to choose who you're standing in line with to get popcorn. So, we all have to deal with that. But what chapter 14 does talk about is this thing called multi-generational workplaces. Now, this is something that you've seen if you've ever had a job where there's a lot of different people from a lot of different age groups that work together. Um, Give me a thumbs up if you've ever had a work bestie that was not in your age group. Like maybe you're a younger cat, but you just got this real cool dude. Maybe he's 40 or 50. Caitlin says, yeah, we all have it, right? Look at that. Look at all those thumbs. Isn't it the coolest thing ever? Sometimes you even see that stuff on social media. I love it when, this young 20 or something have the best friend and the lady's like 50, 60 years old. It was my scenario too. I had two wonderful workmates that when I was in my 20s, they were like 40 and 50 years old. And I love to hang out with them. I ate with them at lunch every day, right? And they have so much wisdom too, right? They love to impart all this wisdom on you. They tend to have a more relaxed mindset because they've seen it all, they've done it all. I really enjoy working with people that are older than me, but I like working with people that are younger than me too. Let me tell you something. I had an experience today where I had to go get my air conditioner, which I'm so mad about. I keep having these issues with it. In July, and it's an Audi, right? And I say that in case somebody has one, y'all can tell me what the problem is. Is an Audi 2017, and it said that my air just stopped blowing. And so I took it in. They did all these inspections, couldn't find a thing. They did a what they call a recharge, and of course, whatever. It lasted a few months. Guess what, guys? Stopped working again. I had to go back in. I went to the same people. Maybe I made a mistake. They did another recharge, another inspection. Couldn't find a thing. All right. This was last month. It went out again. Oh, I was so mad, right? And we're talking about 400 or 500 bucks a pop these people were charging me. Um, so I was like, I'm just gonna take it somewhere else. Something said, take it to this little like what do you call them, Valvolines, whatever. And I'm like, I'm just gonna take it up there. And wouldn't you know it, it was just, I mean, all these people had to be 25 years old or less. And one was a really young girl. I mean, maybe she was like 22. And she came out, palms greasy, everything. And I'm like, yeah, go girl. I'm like, girl power. She's a mechanic. I thought it was really, really sweet. And this young lady started telling me everything about my air conditioning unit. Like, I got you. I'm going to take care of you. I felt good just because of her knowledge. And I sat and I watched these young people just work on my car, and they telling me all these different things about my car. They're showing me the system, and they're showing me the machines they're working with. And of course, as an educator and as a mom, I was so proud of them, but I wasn't going to tell them that because that would have been cheesy. But I was like, look at these young kids. I would work with young kids all day long because you guys are just so fearless. So I love it on both sides of it. I love the young, I love the old. I like a multicultural workplace because I think that's where you get a lot of your growth from, right? So um, there's two things in life that transcends all races, all nationalities, all ethnic groups. I don't care if you grew up in Vietnam or you grew up in Georgia. Two things that transcend. One is age, and the other is money. You can find a rich person, and y'all tell me if if you disagree. You can find a rich person around the globe. You can pick one up out of sub-Saharan Africa and go all the way up to the Antarctic, and rich is rich. Is that not the case? If they all have $50 million, they all typically are going to be doing $50 million things, right? They're probably going to all have really nice homes, be traveling first class or whatever. Maybe what they buy and eat may be different, but they're all going to live richly. Well, can we not agree to that? You can agree. You can also go on the other side of that spectrum and say poor is poor. Like hungry is hungry. I don't think hunger looks any different no matter what side of the globe you come from. If I can't eat, I can't eat, right? I don't think there's any more hungry or less hungry, right? Maybe you've been hungry for longer than somebody else, but hungry is hungry. So economic status transcends, across any type of difference. But so does age. Now, why is age something that transcends? How many of you remember uh the virus, COVID? I always get confused. Is it COVID, coronavirus? Is the same, right? How many people remember that? I mean, it wasn't but a few years ago. All right. Now, imagine. I don't know how many of you have kids, but all of us probably remember COVID, right? I get it. Let's go down 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when one of your children they weren't here, or maybe you have grandkids by then, and you're telling them about COVID. They're probably going to look at you like, what? What's a COVID? What is that? They're going to be reading about it in their textbooks. But that's something only we, right now, that's living today, will ever experience in our age group. Do you understand that? That's something across the world that we have experienced. It's like asking someone that went through World War II or World War III, their mindset is going to be very different. How many of you have grandparents, that have, went through the Great Depression, and so they keep money in the underneath their mattress. They're afraid of putting stuff in the bank. They don't try anybody have any, family members like that. That is because they have a shared experience. And I don't care what side of the globe they come from, it's because it's something that they experienced. That's that generational commonality that people have. I tell people now, like, a lot of people are in politics, and, I approach it from an economic standpoint, but I also approach it from a generational standpoint. I'm like, you guys have to understand, our president right now is turning almost 80 years old. That means he was born in 19 what? So his mindset, a lot of people that are in Congress, which is one of the reasons why they want to do age limits, their entire mindset is going to be based on their experience. Yes, they've lived, but I'm going to tell you now, even as a 52-year-old, there's certain things I just don't do anymore. I've never been on Snapchat. I am not on TikTok. I got off Facebook a long time ago. I tapped out. At a certain age, you just tap out and you just stick to what you like, right? And that's what you'll do as you get older. You're going to realize that there's certain music. I can't tell you who sings what nowadays. I don't know when you turn old, but at some point you just stop and you just turn, you just like, nothing new is interesting me anymore. And so it will happen to you. So these older people, at some point in their life, they just decided to stop. And what was considered the good old days are the good old days. Just like me, the good old days of rap was LL Cool J and that type stuff. Don't give me some new stuff. I'm not even interested in it. I don't even understand half of it. And so when you deal with generations, they're going to have these different mindsets. And so that's why I tell people, like, what's happening in politics today? They don't want anybody to work remotely. Can you imagine? Now, you younger folks are probably laughing because you grew up on technology. You don't think anything is wrong with technology. But take a 80-year-old, right? Like a Donald Trump. And I can understand why this age group is like, oh my God, no remote work. If there wasn't any remote work, I wouldn't have a job. Now, I didn't grow up on technology. Technology was happening by the time I turned 18, 19 years old. They were introducing it. I got introduced to the computer when I was in the Army, and we were still doing coding to engage with the computer. Um, so luckily, and we're going to walk through these generations, the silent generation, that's that Donald Trump generation. 2% of the workforce, most of the older people are in education or politics, to be honest, because everybody else is retiring. You won't find a lot of 80-year-olds still working unless they're working at, Publix or Walmart, and with DEI down the drain. I don't know if they're gonna hire the poor old people anymore. But most older people at 80 years old, they're retired. They don't really make up that much of the workforce. But look at some of their commonalities. Very traditional, right? They believe in hard work. They always want to be a role model. So it's really good to pair them with younger people. Why am I telling you this? Because at some point you are going to be managing these different multi-generational workplaces, and you need to understand that different people think differently. It's not just about ethnic ethnicity. And I'm gonna tell you right there, that's a small part. A big part is generational and economics. Those are the two things that really move a person. Ethnicity is neither here nor there because that depends on where you grew up. Baby boomers, this is that, like Obama generation, they're still all right. Maybe most of your parents are baby boomers. You can think about your parents and put your parents in the mindset. You're going to have people that work with you that fall within your parents' age group. Yes, you will, right? And then my age group is Generation X. Like I said, we grew up with technology was right, starting to make changes. We do believe in hard work. We're kind of a toe in, a toe out. We understand the baby boom generation, but we're probably a little bit more independent in our thinking than they are, right? If you think about the 70s and that good old 70 music, and all that, what you call them, oh my God, it just went out of my head. All those famous 70 groups. You know, we kind of grew up on that peace and love mindset. So, Generation X, maybe some of your parents, maybe your older siblings, maybe you fall within this age group, and so you can kind of understand it. Now, most of you probably fall within the Generation Y and the millennials and probably Generation Z. Now, you guys are all tech buffs, y'all. You're very worldly because you probably play games, with people across the globe, and you've connected to people. You have a better tolerance for things, right? And so, can you imagine if you put 10 people, 15 people, and they got a few people from each of these generations, and you put them on the team, and you said, okay, now we all are going to work together. What do you think is going to be a common thread? Probably, people that grow or in certain generations are going to have certain mindsets. Is that not the case? What do you guys think? Who- Who's the people tend to group more with their age group? Is that not the case? So when you are working in these environments, particularly when you are managing these environments, I remember when I was in the military and I was like a sergeant, and then I had to be in charge of a platoon. Oh my God. And then and all these people came, and I had, people from, very rural environments to people very city environments. Can you imagine? And here I am, from Florida, which, some people consider us Southern, some people don't. And I had to manage this group, and you have to man up, you have to buck up when you're in the military. You're in charge of, mostly guys, right? You you can't be a wimp, right? But again, I appreciated it because I learned so much. It's so funny. I'll be honest, most of my work besties are all men. I don't know why. And most of them are, not that it matters, but tend to be ethnically diverse. I'm just going to put it that way. Not look like me, put it that way. And I don't know what it is. We just tend to get along. And I think maybe it's because of my military training. They know, okay, she's a hard worker. She's no nonsense, but she's agreeable, and we just get along. And I, have had the pleasure of having very long standing friendships after I've departed those jobs. And so, like I said, none of, none of the people that I consider a friend now, none of them look like me, put it that way. So I've always enjoyed these environments because I think you learn so much. So chapter 14 really just wanted you to understand that these multicultural workplaces is something that you should embrace, particularly if there's anybody here that wants to start their own business. Quick thumbs up of who wanted to start their own business. I know there's a few of us. I mean, I don't know. Last time I checked, money is green, and we live in a multicultural environment. So, okay, Darian, Jacob, you can tell me if I'm not getting this right. But I don't think you care who you sell to or who you service as long as they're paying. Is that not the case? So, when you are living in a multicultural environment, you need to make sure that you can speak the language. Like, what do I look like living in Miami and I don't have anybody on my team that speaks Spanish? How successful do you think I'm going to be? I'm just asking for a friend. Or if I have a business in Chinatown and nobody speaks Mandarin, like I just don't know how that's going to work. Like, listen, I want all the money. Let me tell you something. I don't care if all my people spoke Spanish. If it's going to get me paid, listen, we going to be very diverse. You understand me? Because green spins everywhere. So, but that's just me. So I really don't understand it. Like, why would you not want diverse? Not if you don't run a business, and maybe you just don't understand it, you don't get it. But most business people, it baffled. I was not surprised at all when Target lost all that money. I'm like, that didn't make any sense. You should have minded your own business. Like economics 101 says, business people do not get involved in politics. You are messing with your money. What are you doing? Right? Don't do that. Right? So hopefully they get back on track. But anyway, another thing that you will encounter a lot is this idea of discipline and termination. Hopefully you don't have to worry about much of this now, but God forbid if something comes up, that's why I say read that employee handbook. And you do have to get disciplined for whatever reason. Typically, when you're in your career, it's not like you're just working at Walmart or something and they can be like, okay, we're upset with you, blah, 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 you got to go. Even then, they tend to have a process. But what the process should look like is a verbal warning followed up by a written warning, suspension, and termination. And that I won't get into the nuances of that, but even that has a procedure that it typically takes. And you can find that in your employee handbook and company policies and procedures. When they give you that document, you don't have to read it during orientation, but make sure you go home and read it. A lot of times they uh, put new information in these handbooks. You think that they're just standard, they're not standard. Let me tell you, they could have had a lawsuit 3 weeks ago, and then they added to the employee handbook what they don't want you to do, and you're thinking it's going to be just standard stuff because you didn't read the handbook, and you have to sign for that handbook. And what they don't tell you is that when you sign for that handbook, you are signing that you are agreeing to everything that's in that handbook, and you haven't even read it. And then somebody comes and tells you, oh, you violated something from page 211 of the handbook. We're going to write you up. You're like, what? You signed for it. And that's the first thing HR will tell you. Well, here's your signature that you signed for the employee handbook stating that you read it and you understand it. So what are you doing? Now you've signed two things. You've signed a contract, an employee contract saying that you are going to provide this service, and you've signed an employee handbook saying that you are going to abide by these rules, processes, and procedures while employed there. So you have two documents that you've signed. Please make sure you understand what you are signing, and so read them. Okay. All right. So, lastly, good. Hopefully, you guys understand that you have to take control of your career. Yes. If you didn't get anything out of this class, give me a thumbs up if you got at least one thing out of class. I know I'm begging for compliments. I am. It's shameful, but thank you, Marjorie. Marjorie's like, just hurry up and give her a thumbs up so she can be quiet. Thank you guys so much. Did y'all get something? Hopefully, you got something from this class. If you haven't got anything, understand this. Do a career plan. Like, I wish I could sit down and write every last one of y'all career plans. Trust me, I do, because it will save you in life. It is your roadmap. If you want to get somewhere, there is no secret to success. Everything you want to do starts with a plan. Let me tell you, I've been around the world and back. Yeah, I don't know if y'all heard me talk about working in Africa. Of course, when I was in the military, I traveled a lot. And everything I do with a plan. And people say, I don't know if you guys remember Martin Lawrence show. There's a comedy show. Y'all, anybody old enough to remember that? But they had a friend on there named Tommy. Nobody ever knew what Tommy did for a living. Thank you, Gemma. That's me. None of my family members know what I do for a living, because you know what? My plan is I always have a 3, 5 year plan. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And people are always like, girl, what do you do for a living? We never know. What country are you in? What state are you in now? I'm like, the one that pays me. That's all you need to understand, because I'm following my plan. Nobody has to understand your plan but you. You understand? Get what you need to get done. People always say, don't tell people your plan. Keep your business to yourself. Once you've accomplished what you've accomplished, don't go around saying, and let me tell you something. This has messed me up throughout my life, because you're so excited about your career. Don't tell people your business. Don't tell people unless it's somebody like an instructor that's been there before, and don't ask for advice from someone that's never done it. Don't go asking somebody, that's never ran their own business how to run a business. That doesn't make sense. Get your advice from people that have already done it. Once you get to the other side and you've accomplished it, then yeah, you can talk about it. But while you in the trenches, while you in the valley, keep that to yourself. That is I'm gonna get off my auntie soapbox, but that is my my tip of the day for you. All right, get it done, because if you start talking about people where you're trying to go, everybody's gonna have a million opinions about what you should and shouldn't do. They're gonna be placing all their fears and anxieties on you, and next thing you know, now you're gonna have an anxiety attack that you did not have before you started asking for advice. So don't do that. All right. I want you guys to be successful. You know about being a good employee. We've talked about that, so I won't dig into that. And obviously, everything that we've talked about, from your development to good relationships and personal growth, of course, that's all a part of your career success. All right, my friends, wrap that on up. I wanted to make sure I got out of here right at 6:30. Look at me, 6:29. I'm making it. I did it. So here is our question for today. Thank you, Andrew. Find a company, right? Part of your career plan. Now, some of you that said you want to start your own business, if it were me, I would want my first job to be something I can learn from. Like, I don't know if working at a big, massive corporation would make sense unless that corporation was in the field that you wanted to be in. So let's say, for example, if you were an HVAC person, you said, okay, I want to have my own air conditioning repair shop one day. Maybe it's like a mobile thing that you do. It makes sense that you go work for a company that repairs air conditioners, and maybe they have a huge contracts. Or maybe you go work for a family-owned business that repairs air conditioners. I don't know if I would go want to go work for like a new construction company that doesn't repair air conditioners, but install them. You see what I'm trying to say? So you want to find companies that kind of line up with what you're trying to do. So this exercise here is um, wanting you to practice that. Go find some companies in your career field that you believe that you could work for, and then just Google them. Maybe you've already thought of someone. Like maybe you said, okay, there's a really cool construction company I've always wanted to work for. Go to their website and list three things that you've learned about that company. Hopefully, it's three things you want to know. Just three things. This is to get you in the practice of doing research about companies and making sure that they are in alignment with your plan. Right? All right. Let me tell you quickly about tomorrow. Tomorrow, my friends, listen. We're barely going to be in here. When you come online, I'm going to have a live question up. I will be here. I will make a couple of last announcements. I'm going to be here for questions. I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to talk to me tomorrow. Most of it's going to be, please, Miss Taylor, please give me another chance. But you can come on, get your live question. If you don't have any questions, you can go. Right? Because I want you to be successful. I didn't even offer this to my morning class because I want you guys to take your time and do that test for those of you that haven't done it. And tomorrow is your last day. All right. So you ain't even got to talk to me. You can come on, get the live question, and you can say bye. All right. All right, my friends. If you don't have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Gemma, I'm a little upset with you.